This week, Washington's foreign policy establishment was rocked to its core by a single, unexpected statement. In a city where every word is measured and every move scrutinized, it's rare for a comment to send shockwaves through the corridors of power. Yet, that's exactly what happened, as the world watched and waited to see how the United States would respond to this diplomatic tremor. The source of this disruption? Mark Carney, a towering figure in global finance and former central banker, whose influence extends far beyond the world of economics. Carney, known for his measured tone and careful words, made a series of unexpected remarks about Venezuela. Remarks that have not only caught the attention of the US government, but have also sent ripples across the Atlantic, rattling America's closest allies and partners. His comments, delivered not in the hushed halls of diplomacy, but on a public stage at a major financial conference, have ignited a firestorm of debate. Analysts, journalists, and policymakers are all scrambling to interpret what Carney truly meant, and what his words might signal for the future of Western policy toward Venezuela. The debate is fierce. Some see Carney's remarks as a personal opinion, a momentary divergence from the official line. Others believe they represent a deeper, more significant shift, a sign that the consensus which has long governed North American and Western policy toward Venezuela may be fracturing. The unity that once seemed unbreakable is now being questioned as leaders and diplomats from across the continent weigh their positions. For years, Western nations have presented a united front on Venezuela, condemning its government and supporting opposition movements. Carney's words, however, challenge this established narrative. By questioning the effectiveness of current strategies and hinting at the need for a new approach, he has forced policymakers to confront uncomfortable questions about the future of their alliance and their shared goals in the region. As a respected insider with deep connections in both financial and political circles, Carney's divergence cannot be easily dismissed. His willingness to break ranks suggests that even among the most trusted allies, there are growing doubts about the path forward. The uncertainty is palpable, as leaders exchange uneasy glances and quietly reassess their strategies behind closed doors. In the aftermath, diplomats are scrambling to clarify positions, analysts are dissecting every word and gesture, and politicians are weighing their next moves with unusual caution. The stakes are high, and the world is watching to see whether this moment marks the beginning of a broader realignment in Western policy, or simply a brief, if dramatic, episode in the ongoing saga of international diplomacy. The big question now looms over Washington and its allies. Is this merely Carney's personal view, a subtle signal from Canada, or the first visible crack in what was once a solid united Western front? As the dust settles, one thing is clear. Washington's diplomatic landscape has shifted, and the world is waiting to see what comes next. To grasp the impact of Carney's comments, you need to know the man. Mark Carney is a financial titan, former governor of both the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. He's steered economies through crises and now serves as the UN Special Envoy on climate action and finance. Carney's influence is global, his reputation built on stability and pragmatic analysis. When he speaks, markets and governments listen. His recent remarks on Venezuela are not a gaffe, they're a calculated intervention. Carney is no outsider. He's the establishment questioning its own foundation. That's why his words matter. At a global economic forum, Carney shifted the Venezuela debate. He focused on economic reality, not politics, highlighting Venezuela's vast oil reserves and the inevitability of their return to the market. Carney urged Canada to prepare for competition, framing it as strategic planning, not a call to drop sanctions. He spoke of a rules-based, orderly reintegration of Venezuelan oil, hinting at a post-sanctions world. By emphasizing economic logic over political preconditions, Carney reframed the entire conversation. His message: economic realism must guide future policy. Carney's comments challenge the heart of U.S. strategy on Venezuela. The U.S. relies on allied solidarity to maintain pressure, but Carney's words suggest cracks in that unity. His focus on the eventual return of Venezuelan oil questions the sustainability of endless sanctions. Canada, a key ally, may be recalculating its interests apart from Washington's goals. This signals a potential shift in the North American alliance. Washington is concerned. If Canada prioritizes economic realism, others may follow. Carney's remarks are about more than Venezuela. They're about the future of American influence. The Western alliance faces a new test. Carney's approach marks a clear break from Washington's political focus on regime change. While the United States has long prioritized political transformation in countries like Venezuela, often making regime change a central pillar of its foreign policy, Carney is signaling a different path for Canada. He is not simply echoing the rhetoric coming out of Washington, but instead, he is carving out a distinct Canadian perspective, one that is less about political ideology and more about practical outcomes for Canadians. The US uses sanctions to force political outcomes, sidelining economic realities. These sanctions are designed to apply pressure on governments, but they often have far-reaching consequences that ripple through economies, affecting ordinary people and global markets. The American strategy has been to leverage its economic power to try to shape the political landscape abroad, sometimes at the expense of considering the broader economic fallout, both for the targeted country and for international partners. Carney flips the script. He starts with the economic endgame, urging Canada to prepare for Venezuela's return as a market competitor. Instead of focusing solely on political change, he is looking ahead to the practical implications for Canada's own industries, especially in the energy sector. Carney recognizes that if Venezuela re-enters the global oil market, it could shift supply and demand dynamics, impacting prices and competition. He is encouraging Canadian policymakers and businesses to anticipate these changes, adapt strategies, and ensure that Canada remains competitive in a rapidly evolving global marketplace. His language is pragmatic, not moralistic. Market dynamics, diversification, international law. Carney's focus is on how Canada can navigate these changes by diversifying its economic partnerships, strengthening its legal frameworks, and ensuring that its interests are protected on the world stage. He avoids framing the issue in terms of good versus evil or democracy versus dictatorship, and instead, he emphasizes the importance of understanding the rules of the game and playing to win. This reframes Venezuela from an ideological struggle to a resource management challenge. Rather than viewing Venezuela solely through the lens of political conflict, Carney sees it as a country with vast natural resources that could once again play a major role in the global energy market. For Canada, this means thinking strategically about how to manage competition, secure supply chains, and invest in innovation to maintain a strong position in the energy sector. Carney hints at a Canadian strategy rooted in self-interest, not just solidarity. He suggests that while Canada can stand with its allies on matters of principle, it must also look out for its own economic well-being. This approach encourages Canadian leaders to weigh the benefits and risks of their foreign policy decisions, ensuring that they align with the country's long-term prosperity and security. It's a subtle but profound shift, from following the US lead to charting an independent course. Carney's stance signals a willingness to break from tradition and assert Canada's autonomy on the world stage. This could mean taking positions that differ from those of the United States, especially when Canadian interests are at stake. It's a move that reflects growing confidence in Canada's ability to shape its own destiny in a complex and interconnected world. Canada may be ready to prioritize its own economic resilience. By focusing on strengthening domestic industries, investing in innovation, and building robust trade relationships, Canada can better withstand global shocks and seize new opportunities. Carney's approach invites Canadians to think beyond traditional alliances and to embrace a future where national interests and economic security are at the forefront of policy decisions. Inside Washington, Carney's comments sparked shock and speculation. The official US response is muted, but behind the scenes, questions swirl. Is this a trial balloon for a Canadian policy shift or Carney's personal view? Some see it as impatience with US strategy. Others link it to Carney's climate finance role. Either way, his remarks have forced Venezuela back into the spotlight with a new economic lens. Lawmakers and think tanks are now debating the Carney doctrine. The old consensus is fractured, not by an adversary, but by a friend. US policy faces new complexity and uncertainty. Carney's remarks land on a global chessboard where China and Russia are already key players in Venezuela. Their presence is not new, but it has grown more significant in recent years, as both nations have steadily increased their influence in the region. The stakes are high, and every move is carefully watched by the international community. Both have propped up Caracas, China with massive loans, infrastructure projects, and technology transfers. Over the past decade, China has poured billions of dollars into Venezuela, financing everything from highways and housing to vital oil infrastructure. These investments have not only kept the Venezuelan economy afloat during times of crisis, but have also cemented Beijing's role as a crucial partner for Caracas. Russia, meanwhile, has provided military and diplomatic support, sending advisors, equipment, and even offering intelligence assistance. Moscow's involvement goes beyond mere symbolism. It's a strategic partnership designed to counterbalance Western influence and protect Russian interests in the Western Hemisphere. Carney's call for a rules-based return of Venezuelan oil to global markets implies that any solution must involve these powers. The reality is that China and Russia now control significant portions of Venezuela's oil output, and their cooperation is essential for any meaningful progress. Ignoring their interests is unrealistic. Any attempt to sideline Beijing or Moscow would likely backfire, risking further instability or even retaliation. The complex web of alliances and rivalries means that every diplomatic gesture is loaded with meaning. Carney's pragmatism hints at a broader, more inclusive solution, one that recognizes the new multipolar reality of global politics. He seems to be advocating for a framework where all stakeholders, including China and Russia, have a seat at the table. If Canada signals openness to engaging China and Russia, it could shift the balance of power. U.S. leverage, long taken for granted in the Americas, would weaken as new alliances form and old assumptions are challenged. For Beijing and Moscow, Carney's words validate their investments and strategic bets in Venezuela. It's a sign that their patience and resources are paying off, and that the West may be forced to acknowledge their growing clout. The message is clear. Western unity is fading, and the old order is being challenged. As divisions grow among traditional allies, the door opens wider for America's rivals to assert themselves. This could embolden China and Russia to deepen their ties with Venezuela even further, expanding their economic, military, and political footprint in the region. The implications stretch far beyond oil. They touch on security, trade, and the future of global alliances. Carney's move opens new possibilities for America's rivals, setting the stage for a new era of competition and cooperation in the Americas. The world is watching closely, as the next moves on this geopolitical chessboard could reshape the balance of power for years to come. Carney's focus on a rules-based approach critiques the ad hoc nature of unilateral sanctions. Long-term sanctions often lack international legitimacy and create uncertainty for investors. Carney advocates for legal certainty and structured agreements, classic Canadian pragmatism. He warns that ignoring market forces is unsustainable. Venezuela's oil will eventually return. The current policy tightens supply, raises prices, and benefits rivals. Carney's message, economic reality, can't be wished away. Foreign policy must account for market dynamics and legal stability. Achieving democratic goals may require a more pragmatic, economically literate strategy. Carney's comments may signal a broader shift in the Western alliance and global order. The era of automatic alignment with Washington is fading. Allies are defining their interests independently, responding to a more complex world. Carney's focus on Canadian competitiveness reflects this new mindset. U.S. leadership will need to adapt, persuading, not dictating, to maintain influence. The future is one of consensus building among independent allies. Carney's words reflect a world in transition, where economic pragmatism rivals political ideology. The shockwaves in Washington are about more than Venezuela. They're about a changing global architecture. America must adapt or risk being left behind.